Hi, I'm Tara Cross with Creating Joy, and I'm glad you could join me today. Today we're going to learn about making the trailing square quilt. So I've missed all of you the last couple of months. I've been working on the quilt for my daughter Amy, who just got married this last week, and it was a lot of work working on that quilt. It ended up being the size of a king size quilt, and the whole gist of it was that the main part, it's for a queen quilt, so that it would sit on top and then it would drape over the side. And by the time you measure it, it was the measurements for a king quilt. And I'm going to take you step by step on how I worked on it, and I kept changing my ideas of how I wanted it. There was, when you start on an idea, when you start making a quilt, if you don't totally know what you're doing, I thought I knew what I was doing, and I decided as it went along that I didn't like the way the pattern had a certain border. And I decided that for this particular quilt, I didn't want that. And I went to several different quilt shops looking at quilts that were already made. And when I was over in Jamesport, Missouri, I found one. There were several beautiful, beautiful handmade Amish quilts there. And they really inspired me for the way they did their border. And I just wanted something different. And you'll see how I was able to use strips, and I was able to bring in the colors from the main part of the quilt to the border. And it just made it all tie together. And it was just simply beautiful by the time it was done. And then I'm going to show a couple of pictures at the wedding of how the groom's mom, bless her heart, she loves to work with wood. She's not a quilter, but she's definitely a woodworker, and she made this incredible hanging. It's a quilt hanger, I don't know how to say it, but she made these big boards to put little attachments to hold the quilt up. The wedding reception was outside, and everything turned out beautiful. The weather was beautiful. God answered all of our prayers that we had for having the perfect weather. And it was like exactly what we had asked for, with a little breeze and everything in the hot weather in July. And so it was just splendid. And we had so many people come together and help us. And I'm really grateful for all the great friends we have here in Missouri. So without any more ado, we're going to go right into that. I'm going to share how the quilt came together. Go ahead and get out your ruler, and we're going to cut out 7 6-inch strips. Okay. So here I have all 7, and we're going to go ahead and go iron them, and then cut them the other direction so that we can get our 42 6-inch by 6-inch squares. Remember to trim off the selvage on both ends. Okay, great. The other thing is, when you're getting your fabric, match your piece. So I had my last one, my Tongan squares, I did with a tan, and with this one, I'm doing white. Okay, now that our squares are cut, we're going to take our ruler and we're going to line it up and draw a line from corner to corner. And then a shorter line just past that, 1/2 inch. Now take your 10-inch squares, and you're going to go ahead and line it up on the corner, and take your pin and pin it in, and then we're going to, I do all 42 at once, pin them all together, and then I can just sew them all at once and do chain sewing. Okay, so we'll take this one and we'll take it to the sewing machine and go down one side and up the other and come back. Sew down one line and then turn around and go back up the other. Your edges, your strings. Okay, I love my new ruler. It has a little 1/4 of an inch on it, so it makes it so easy. You just line it up on the line that you just sewed, and then just go ahead and slice it, and there you have it. Okay, and then you can see that you've got your square. Okay, so now we're going to go over and we'll iron it, and you can look at this piece over here, and there you go. So that's going to be the small one that's going to be part of the border. So go over to the ironing board and iron them open. And so what you're going to do is you're just going to go ahead and make all 42 of these. You're going to line them up 6 by 7 across and just decide on how you want the design. You can either make them look like diagonals or just random. And for these, you're going to do them along the border. And you can do a thin little strip around, the one inch around. I'll show you how I'm doing mine. Okay, here I have all of my squares cut out, and I put them the way I want them. I wanted them to be in a diagonal. Okay, your next step is you're going to take your squares and do them right side, and pin them, and do it all the way across. So you have your whole line pinned together. And then do that for each row, and then you're going to sew your rows together to make your top. Okay, so what I was talking about for lining your seams up, you go ahead and you have one seam going to the left, one to the right, and then you just hook them right together, put your pin in, and then I like to put one on the other one hooked up together, and then I'll grab the center one right here and grab a pin, and I'll go ahead and put a pin right in the center, and do that to all of them. And go ahead, and then you're going to sew each row together, and then once you have all the rows together, then you'll go ahead and put on your border, and I'll teach you how to do the border next. So this is the purple batik that I've chosen to go around as a border of my trailing square quilt center that I've already made. And I'm going to cut 6 inches for each side, and then we'll add on the other pieces. So before I put my quilt center away, I labeled it. So I've got the bottom and the top. I just thought it would be easier when I brought it back out to work on it. And then the left and the right. So that way I can just pull it out and know what I want to do first, which is really nice. Especially when you're working with different colors and stuff. It's good to know which one I had chosen to be the top and the bottom. Okay, so since this is the top, what I want to do is I want to sew the sides on first, and then I'm going to sew the top and the bottom on. So I'm going to go ahead and work on just seeing first of all if it's long enough. So I measured it, and I will have a little left over, and so I'm just going to go ahead and pin it all the way down. So looking at it, it's so similar. Really on these batiks, you're just going to have to decide which one is the brighter side, the more vibrant one, which color you like the best, and decide which one you want to be the inside. Because once I ironed all the creases out, so you can't tell anymore. So, okay, so I have chosen this one, so I'm just going to go ahead and pin it all the way down, and then I'm going to sew it on. Okay, Then I'm going to do that to all the different sides, and I'll come back and I'll show you what it looks like. So here I have sewn on the purple all the way around for the first border that I'm going to do. And now I'm going to take strips and I'm going to sew them together, and I'll show you how I'm going to cut them apart now. Okay, so now we're going to take our fabric and we're going to cut 4-inch strips, 12 inches long. I'm going to go ahead and fold it one more time. Line it up on the side and at the top. I'm going to go ahead and do a tiny little cut to make sure it's all even. My line, and then 1, 2, 3, 3 inches, 4 inches. I'm doing 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to show you what to do with strips. So we're going to take them and line it clear up at the very edge of your mat. So you can start on the 1. For me, I found this easier. Depends on how big your mat is. I'm going to go, since it's starting clear over here at the 0, then I go over to the 12. I can line up my lines, and then I can do a nice cut. And then I can go to 24. Line up my lines again. And then I have the 36 at the very end. 3 strips. Pile them on with my other ones. And I'll just do the other ones. If you feel comfortable with it, you can go ahead and pile them up on top of each other and cut them. If you feel like you're not going to get them straight, then just do them one at a time. Okay, and then you just keep doing this with all the strips that you're going to do to go around. Okay, so I've cut my strips, and right now I am just changing them around to try and see what I like best. I really like this one right here. I'm thinking of having more of this. This one is pretty. I thought I would have more of the greenish one to bring things in, but where I have the purple along the border, I'm thinking that it might be better to have more of the blues and not quite as many of the green and purple. So we'll see. I'm going to try it again, changing it around, and we'll see how it looks. So here I switched it around so that we've got the blue on each side of this and then the green on each side of this one. Trying to use more of these colors. I have more fabric of these 2 colors than I do of the other ones. And so I'm just trying to be able to use all of my fabric. So here you can see that I have taken my 12-inch by 4-inch strips and I've sewn them together. And once they were all sewn together, then I sewed them onto the right-hand side of my quilt. The next step I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate the same pattern, and I'm going to put it on the second side, and then I'm going to put it on the bottom right here. Once the quilt top was all done, I had to decide whether I was going to try and quilt it myself or what I was going to do. And by the time the quilt top was done, it was getting really close to the time of the wedding, and I decided to go ahead and take it to Jamesport, Missouri, to the Sherwood Fabrics. and I had them go ahead and quilt it. They used the Aztec design. I decided to use that design to carry on the look of the squares of the trailing square, and it made it so that when you look at it, that you'll see the squares for the trailing squares, and then you see the squares that went along with the Aztec design. And the whole goal was to keep the squares within each square that I sewed together. So it did. It turned out good. It was exactly how I had imagined. And now seeing it on the bed of the bride and groom, it's just gorgeous. It worked out really, really nice. And it looks really good. So it's fun to, there's so many different designs and patterns out there for quilting, but it's fun to try and find a pattern that goes along with the design of your quilt. And that's what I was really trying to do, to continue that on. And they did a great job. They did the quilting, and then they did the binding also. So thank you to them.